Hello.
Hello, Drew. How are you?
Oh, fine. Thought I'd just go straight to the point. I thought we could have a debate on evolution. I
All
believe that
right.
we were genetically engineered by extraterrestrials, and that evolution from common ancestor didn't happen. And I thought I'd bring up points to support that. One is
Well, hang on. Maybe you'd like to ask me what I think of that before you plow straight
okay,
into
sure.
the
Like
debate.
I heard you before. You said you believed in evolution, right? So
All right. So can you tell me what the evidence is for these space aliens?
okay. Well, one argument against it is that it's extremely unlikely. Do you believe that, or can I skip that?
Well, something which is unlikely but which has happened is not irrational, right? So it's unlikely that any individual person is going to win the lottery, but people win the lottery.
Well, yeah, but still, like for example, if the pyramids could be explained by aliens, but if it can also be explained by ancient people working really hard with lots of slaves, if it's unlikely aliens exist, then the more logical explanation would be that no aliens, because of odds, right?
I don't know about that. Let me just ask you a question, though, if you don't mind, before we get into that.
Okay.
Could you tell me about your relationship with your parents when you were a child?
Kind of, they were involved, but I'm not emotionally connected to them.
Right. Can you tell me a little more about that? I appreciate you. I mean, I know it's a bit of a left field question, but I would just like to get some context for how you learn to interact with people. Again, I'm not criticizing. Or
Yeah, kind of
curious.
learned to interact with people kind of mechanically. I tried to get a little better about that, like recognizing emotions. I moved into college now, so I've been lived away from my parents for a couple years, so that kind of helped.
Right. And the reason I'm asking that is, have you listened to this show much before?
Yeah, for like 4 months now.
Okay,
Kind of
great. Well, I
regularly.
appreciate that. I hope that you're finding some value in it. Do you know that it's obviously a pretty nutty topic, which doesn't mean wrong or bad to talk about, but it's a very unusual topic to bring up, talking about space aliens driving evolution?
No, that instead, not evolution. They just recreate newer models of species, so it kind of looks like we evolved. Kind of like
Right, but you
technology
understand that that's quite an
advances.
unusual. Sorry, that's quite an unusual.
Yeah,
topic
that
to talk
is.
about. And so you know that it is an unusual topic to talk about, right?
Yes.
And so I'm just sort of trying to help you at least understand how it might be easier to talk about things with people,
Okay.
which is you bring it up like it's not unusual.
Okay.
And that's hard. I think that's hard for people to sort of understand. Right. So if I start talking about anarchy with people, I have to sort of address their existing perceptions of anarchy, or I have to say, yeah, it's a weird topic, it's an unusual topic, or you're going to have some reactions to the topic of anarchy that I understand, or I'm bringing up something that is going to be a challenge, and so on. Right? I don't just say, well, we should abolish the state and everything would be great. Right? That would be startling to people. Right?
Yeah, but if you get exposed to a lot of anarchy arguments and you listen to it regularly, you start to normalize it. So.
Well, yes, but this is what I'm
Okay.
telling you is that if you want to talk to other people.
So I have to talk
About an
like
unusual
I'm
topic.
crazy?
No, you have to. Well, you don't have to do anything. I'm just trying to give you some
Okay.
advice on how
Yeah, I'm not
to
the most
communicate. You have to
tactful
understand.
person.
Hang on, I'm trying to I'm trying to talk here. You have to bring things up like, okay, Steph, you accept evolution. I know that there's some strong arguments for evolution, some strong evidence, but I'm going to bring up a topic that is going to be quite startling and unusual for you. And so, but I promise you, I've looked into it. I've got good sources. I've got good research. So, okay. But just saying, I want to argue that space aliens guided our development, and it only looks like evolution, and then just start without getting my response, is not a very effective way to communicate. I'm just telling you. I mean,
Okay.
right? Because you need to sort of ask me, introduce the topic to me with a knowledge that it is an unusual topic, right?
Okay.
And so this is why I'm asking you, when you were a kid, you said that you weren't particularly emotionally close to your parents. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me a little more about that? How did that show up?
I don't, well, kind of did stuff with me. Like when I was really little, I really loved to play like board games and card games. So we'd do that together, but I don't know if I was too emotional with them or kind of felt distant, especially getting older. Like just like I couldn't really bond with them.
And do you know how you were? Do you remember how you were disciplined as a child?
Mostly really little timeouts, and then older, like taking video games away.
All right, so no spanking or anything like that.
Well, like one memory long time ago of being spanked, but I think that was it. I asked them if I was spanked when I was really little, and they said no. So,
but you remember one time?
Barely, yes. But like he apologized after saying he overreacted.
So when they said that you weren't spanked, either they don't remember something that you think they would remember, or they were lying.
Well, I talked to them, like maybe they just didn't think it was that big of a deal that one time.
No, that's a binary question. Was I spanked when I was a child? Yes, one time is the answer.
Well, I was asking both my parents. My mom said no, I wasn't spanked, but I remembered it was by my dad, and he didn't answer, so that he might have dodged it, not wanting to answer.
Right. And do you remember your parents asking you about your feelings?
I can't really think of time when that, no.
Do you ever remember as a child being upset and your parents noticing and doing something about it without you telling them?
Maybe when I was really little, I think so. Like, if I'm like crying, they would do something.
No,
really little.
Sorry, and I agree with that. But what I'm saying is that when it's not obvious, in other words, you're not crying, you're just sad. Did they ever notice it and do something about it without you telling them I'm sad?
If it's not obvious, no.
Right. Now, do you think that's a possible thing to do, or do you think that's not a possible thing to do?
Depends on how, well, I guess if you're really interactive, you could ask every so often how you're doing, anything bother you, and if they made me feel like I could trust them with things, then I would say something. So I guess it would be possible.
Well, and I appreciate you saying so you could continue to ask, but what I'm asking is, do you think it's possible to know that someone is sad when they're not crying without asking them?
It would take with a lot of practice, or if you're trained to recognize it, yes.
Right. But so it is. But now it doesn't actually need really a lot of practice. It needs that mirroring when you're an infant, and then you kind of have it for life, sometimes whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So, and do you know why you're obviously a smart fellow. Do you know why I'm asking you all of this weird, annoying, perhaps tangential stuff?
To know where I'm coming from?
Well, yeah, that's kind of generic, but why in particular am I asking you about this stuff?
The question I brought up, or the topic I brought up, seemed abnormal, and you wanted to know if there was an explanation for that in my childhood.
Again, that's fairly abstract. I can be more specific, and then maybe it'll make some more sense.
Okay.
So you began your topic without empathy for how me or the Free Domain Radio listeners now and forever would absorb the topic.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it's a pretty wild claim, because you're claiming knowledge of the existence of aliens, which is a pretty wild claim. I think we would have heard about that. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's a pretty wild claim, and you didn't seem to know that it was coming across as a really wild claim. So what I'm asking is, if your parents had the capacity to understand how you felt, in other words, did they show empathy towards you when it wasn't obvious? I mean, you go to a pure psychopath, and you show a picture of a crying person, and you say, "Is that person sad?" Right? And they'll say, "Well, yeah," because that's the sign, right? But if the person is just looking a little muted, then you can say, "Well, yes, I think," a sensitive person would say, "Well, yes, I think that person is sad." And my daughter looks at a picture where somebody is just looking a tiny bit sad, and she says, "I think that person is sad." And we've practiced this, like show me your sad face, show me your happy face, show me your whatever face, right? And she's very good at figuring out how people feel without asking them, just by looking at facial expressions. 90% of communication is nonverbal, which is why this show can often be a challenge, right? But she's good at pointing it out, and I can sometimes notice when she's upset, when she's not saying anything, or if she just seems a bit muted. I mean, I'll just ask her, "Do you feel upset?" or whatever, right? And sometimes I'll ask her if she feels upset, and only then does she look up, and she then feels her sadness, and then we talk about it. So all of this stuff is very possible to be very sensitive to how you appear to other people. And I think the more unusual a set of ideas you have to propose, the more sensitive you need to be to how other people will perceive you. And my guess is that this topic probably alienates you from some of the people around you, which again is not an argument for the truth or falsehood of the topic, but does that happen?
I usually don't bring it up. I think I've only told a few people this ever.
And how's that gone?
They don't believe me, that they don't reject me or anything.
Yeah, but do you feel satisfied that the topic is explored? Do they, right, all that kind of stuff?
Not deeply explored, but just I got it out there.
And does it return as a topic of conversation or not?
No, well, one of it was with the person who went to my college, but then dropped out, so I don't see him anymore. And the other two, I told my family, who's religious, so that kind of separates us.
You're atheist or agnostic?
Yeah, I technically atheist. I prefer non-religious, because atheism is often associated with evolution. So I prefer non-religious, but both are technically correct.
Right. Okay. And do they ask you about your? Do they know about your irreligiosity?
Yes.
And what do they talk about? Do they ask you about it, or what are their thoughts about it?
They don't really talk about it. They're I told them okay, you can believe what you want, and then not really brought up.
Right. And do they, when you did talk about it with them, what was their response?
Surprised.
Go on.
I guess they weren't really disappointed. My mom said she'd pray for me. That's about it.
Wow. I mean, you really didn't talk that much about this very important topic, right?
Right.
And what do you think about that?
I don't know.
Well, no. See, I asked you a feeling topic, and you replied with a knowledge topic, right? And I said, "How do you feel?" And you said, "I don't know."
Okay, how do I feel? Well, that I can't really connect with them, because if I can't talk to them something this serious, then how can I have an emotional connection with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big topic, right? I mean, I assume you were raised religious. You went to church and all that, and Sunday school maybe, and all that.
Yeah.
And you don't believe, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And so is there anything of importance that you do talk about with your parents?
How I'm doing in school, that's...
Yeah, not important. Go on.
Oh, if that's not important, then no, we don't talk about anything important.
Right. Right. And how do you feel about that?
Kind of, maybe kind of empty-ish. Like if I can't, a lot of things I think is important, they don't. So we can't really talk about anything serious.
And just out of curiosity, I mean, why do you think you can't talk about anything serious? What problems would it cause, or what negative things would result?
I don't know. Like once I tried to like talk kind of like politics, and I tried to bring up a libertarian issue. Like at first went back and forth a little, but then once I made a good point, they kind of like retreated and didn't want to have the discussion. So.
Huh. And so
I
you
think
brought up a good
they're fine talking.
point. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
No, go ahead.
Just like they're fine talking about issues like this, but once I start making good points, and I think they don't want to talk about it because they're afraid they might realize they're wrong, so they just don't talk about it. That's what I think. Because like my mom, like we did talk a couple of religious debates, but I don't think she would want to talk about it if she's afraid she might be wrong, kind of thing.
Right. Right. And so it's, parental withdrawal, in my opinion, is always kind of punitive. Because we're so dependent on our parents for growing up that when they withdraw from us or refuse to participate with us, they're training us in a pretty powerful way to not pursue those particular topics, right?
Yeah.
And that's really rough on a kid, right?
Yes.
I mean, you obviously, you care about where we came from, you care about the universe and life in the universe and the origins of species, and I mean, you care about libertarian issues, you thought about religion and atheism. I mean, you are a deep guy in your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And when you bring that depth to people, they recoil in a way, right, with your parents.
Yeah.
They shut the conversation down, right?
Yeah.
And I imagine that you don't feel very comfortable pursuing that and saying, "Wait a minute, why are you shutting the conversation down? This is important to me." That's kind of rude.
Yeah.
You sound sad to me. Again, I can't see your face, but
Yeah, little bit thinking about that is kind of hard.
And what do you think would happen if you were to say, "Listen, I mean, I don't just want to talk about nothing. We've got a short life, and
I think they'd say, "I don't want to talk about this," or something.
Right, but why? Okay, so you be your parents or whoever it is. Let me just do a quick role play here, just so I can sort of understand the map of this resistance. So they say, "I don't want to talk about it," and you say, "Well, I do," and what would they say?
I don't know what they would say.
Would they accuse you of being rude? Would they say, "No, we've already said we don't want to talk about it. Don't push,"
The second one, that they already said they don't want to talk about it, that one. Or most likely something along those lines.
And then you would try to sort of say, "Well, why don't you want to talk about it?" Or, "Can we talk about why you don't want to talk about it?" And they would say no to that as well?
Yeah.
And then what I would say is well, let me ask you this. Sorry, just outside of the role play. When you were a kid, did you want to go to church?
So little, I think usually no, but I kind of enjoyed Sunday school because they kind of ask you about your opinion, which is something that doesn't usually happen.
Right. Yeah, okay. But church, not so much, right?
Right.
And did you ever express to your parents that you didn't want to go to church?
By the time I was in high school, yes, but they made me go anyways.
Right. Yeah, because you said you were so little, and now you're talking about still going to church in high school, right?
Yeah.
Now,
to the day I left for college, still making me go to church.
And why? Hang on a sec. Let me just sort of make sure I get my question phrased correctly. I always want to make sure I'm asking questions without trying to have the preferred answer embedded. So this. I want to make sure I ask the question the right way, because I genuinely want information, not confirmation, right?
Right.
And so you would tell your parents that you didn't want to go to church, and what would they say? You have to go?
Pretty much. Or at first they try and like manipulate me into going, and then if that doesn't work, then they're like, yes, you have to go.
Ah, okay. So the universal statement of that is other people must do what you want.
Well, I think they were thinking, well, I'm the parent, so I make the rules kind of thing.
Well, but parent is not a moral category, right?
Well, right.
I mean, you don't get to strangle some guy and then say, well, I'm a parent. And they say, well, okay, then you can go free because you're in a separate moral category, right?
Well, right, but they're religious, so honor your mother and your father. They can believe that with their religion.
Right. But philosophically speaking.
Right.
Well, and also, of course, I mean, that's just one quote. I assume that they're Christians, not Jews, right?
Right.
Okay, so they're down with the New Testament, right?
Yeah.
And so Jesus said, he has come to bring a sword to the world. He has come to set sons against their fathers and children against their parents, and so on, right? So he has come to create intergenerational warfare because, of course, he was trying to convert Jewish kids into Christianity, which meant that they had to not honor their mother and their father, but go for what Jesus claimed was the truth and not for tradition, right?
Yeah, but
so if you're a Christian, you don't get to say, honor thy mother and thy father. The entire goddamn foundation of Christianity is disrespecting the multi-thousand beliefs of Jewish parents, right?
In that way, yes.
Well, wait, in what way?
No,
is
okay,
it not
yes,
that
yes.
way?
It's yes.
In that way, like this. Well, if you go to the other angle, you see the ass of the elephant, right? That is the truth. Christianity arose out of discarding the virtue and value of parents. It is an anti-parent religion, and it's explicitly an anti-parent religion. Jesus explicitly says that he's come to set children against their parents.
Yeah, I guess forgot about that part. That's
a lot of people do, right?
Yeah.
Well, of course, now Christianity has become conservative rather than revolutionary, so now it praises the past. But of course, the foundation of Christianity is overturning the absolute morality of parents completely. And so for Christianity, if you follow Judaism, you go to hell. So not the parents who don't teach their children about Jesus are condemning them to hell. So it's not just disregard your parents. It is your parents are leading you to everlasting torment and hellfire, and your parents are in league with the devil, right? Because they're not accepting Jesus, and anybody who doesn't accept Jesus goes to hell. So Christianity is founded on your parents are evil. This is what's so funny when Christian parents get upset with me. It's like, well, I'm sorry that I listened to your God and you didn't, but this is the reality of the foundation of the religion. Your parents are evil. Break with them, fight them, avoid them, condemn them, and their multi-thousand-year tradition of Judaism, and follow this new guy with the cool sandals, right?
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, it's funny to me when I say question your parents and the Christians get all butthurt about it. It's like, but this is the whole point of your religion. This is why you have a religion. This is why you're Christians. Oh no, now we can't do it anymore because now we've become the tradition. So now tradition should not be questioned. Then why aren't you Jews? Well, because we had someone overturn tradition and call parents evil. I don't call parents evil. I just say it's voluntary. That's evil anyway. Oh, my God. I mean, oh, my God. I mean, it is predictable. I mean, because everybody just uses standards to pursue immediate self-interest and pretend that it's I mean, I get it, but it's still at the at the root of it, it's completely mental. Anytime you try to bring any logical consistency to this stuff. So the rule is other people must do what you want. Parents cannot be claimed as a moral category by Christianity because Christianity only exists as a religion by calling parents evil. And Christ very explicitly made that point. It's not been buried or lost. I have come to set children against their parents. I have come to bring a sword to the world. he was a fighter. He was a revolutionary. Much more fundamental than anything I ever talk about, because the stakes for anything I talk about are not heaven and hell other than your life. So if your parents say, well, I don't want to talk about it, then you can just say, well, the rule is that other people have to do what you want. This is why you made me go to church. So now you have to talk about something I want to talk about.
Yeah, I don't think that would work, because like even when I point out things in the Bible, when people in general, they usually like say, "Oh, you took that out of context" or something.
Oh yes, the magical phrase "out of context," right? Because the Bible is all full of context. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've heard somebody, Christian was years ago, saying to me, well, if you take things out of context in the Bible, then it's an atheist work. Because you can say, well, the Bible says there is no God. But if you omit the beginning of the sentence, the fool in his heart has said there is no God, right? Then whatever, right? And it's just like, oh man, really? Really? Well, if you reverse all the moral statements of the Communist Manifesto, it becomes the Capitalist Manifesto. Well, yeah, you can play word games with anything. I mean, if you replace I love you, if you just replace the four-letter word love with hate, then you get the opposite. And therefore, it's a bad marriage. And it's like, what? Is this what you people do? Just sit around and play word games? I mean, there's no context in the Bible whatsoever, because it is a work that, like a fly's eye, is developed to be impressively multifaceted and appeal to the widest possible section of the population, knowing the diversity of human thought. So, yeah, so they would quote Bible, and they would simply refuse to talk about anything of substance or depth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, let me ask you this. Is this a more important and enjoyable and useful conversation than aliens and evolution?
It's like comparing apples to oranges. They're just good in their own way.
Okay. Well, let me make it useful for you then, hopefully. I'll make it more useful. You do not speak depth well because you don't have much experience speaking depth, right? I don't have much experience speaking Japanese. I don't speak Japanese well, right?
Right.
And the reason I'm saying this is you have something important that you want to communicate.
Yes.
And it's a very deep topic. The origin of the species is a very deep topic. Whether other intelligent life forms exist in the universe, which of course they do. I mean, statistically, it would be impossible that they didn't, right? I mean, as close to impossible as you can get, blah-de-blah-de-blah, right? Mm-hmm. So this impacts upon biology through evolution, questions of evolution. This impacts upon sense of identity. This certainly impacts upon religion. And this impacts upon, pretty fundamental question. Are we alone in the universe? It's a fantastic question. I don't think the aliens will come as genetic tinkerers. I think the aliens will come with a gigantic mall because they have to be traders. They have to have free markets. Otherwise, they'll never develop the technology necessary for space travel. Oh, it's always the military that comes. The military, I mean, they can't even buy a hammer for less than $500. The idea that they're going to, of their own accord,